Today, I lead a global ministry called Pastors' Wives Rising that serves over 15,000 pastors' wives across 40 countries. We provide counseling, legal support, financial assistance, and advocacy for women navigating abuse, betrayal, and exploitation in ministry marriages. Our annual budget is $1.2 million. I employ 23 full-time staff members across 6 continents. I've written 3 books that have sold a combined 200,000 copies. I speak at conferences internationally. Major denominations consult with us on reforming how they support and protect pastors' wives. My 3 sons are thriving. One is a lawyer advocating for abuse survivors, one is a therapist specializing in religious trauma, and one is a professor studying power dynamics in religious institutions. I'm remarried to a wonderful man who works in education and leads with humility. My life is purposeful, powerful, and deeply fulfilling. But 6 years ago? 6 years ago, I was a pastor's wife sitting in the front row of our megachurch on Easter Sunday, watching a woman I'd mentored walk down the aisle to take her seat in the front pew directly across from me, her belly enormously, undeniably, impossibly 9 months pregnant with my husband's baby. A baby she was due to deliver within days. A baby my pastor husband had conceived with her while I was leading women's Bible studies, while I was counseling hurting women, while I was playing the role of faithful First Lady. A baby he'd hidden from me for 9 months. A baby that was about to be born into our church, into our community, into our lives, destroying everything. That moment, that devastating, public, humiliating moment on the holiest day of the Christian year, became the catalyst for everything. For exposure, for justice, for the ministry I would build. For the thousands of pastors' wives, I would help escape similar situations. Let me tell you how a 9-month pregnant belly in the front pew on Easter Sunday became the foundation for a global movement protecting pastors' wives from wolves disguised as shepherds. My name is Michelle Carson. 6 years ago in 2019, I was 45 years old, an African-American woman living in Atlanta, Georgia. I'd been married to Pastor David Carson for 23 years. We had 3 sons. Joshua was 22, Caleb was 19, and Nathan was 16. We led New Covenant Worship Center, a megachurch with 4,500 members, 3 campuses, and a national television ministry. David was the senior pastor and I was the first lady. We were Atlanta ministry royalty. Everyone knew us. Everyone respected us. Everyone looked up to us as the model of a successful ministry marriage. David and I met at seminary in 1992. Both of us were studying for Master of Divinity degrees, both called to ministry, both passionate about serving God. We married in 1996 right after graduation and immediately planted New Covenant Worship Center. Started with 17 people in a rented storefront. We built it together, me handling administration and women's ministry while David preached and led. We grew rapidly. By 2000, we had 500 members. By 2005, 1,500 members. By 2010, 3,000 members. By 2015, we hit 4,500 members across 3 campuses. We were successful, influential, powerful. But success in ministry often comes with hidden costs. As the church grew, David changed. He became more focused on image than integrity, more concerned with platform than people, more obsessed with growth than godliness. He started traveling constantly for speaking engagements, conferences, and meetings. He was home less and less. Our marriage became more partnership than intimacy, more business than relationship. But I told myself it was the cost of ministry. This is what building God's kingdom required. Sacrifice, distance, loneliness. I accepted it. I pushed down my feelings. I played my role as the supportive First Lady while dying inside. In 2016, David hired a new worship leader named Amber Richardson. She was 28 years old, talented, beautiful, and passionate about worship. She came highly recommended from a church in Florida, and David was excited to bring her on staff. I welcomed her warmly, mentored her, included her in women's ministry activities. She seemed sweet, genuine, committed to Jesus. I trusted her. I invested in her. I had no idea I was investing in my own destruction. Within months of Amber joining our staff, I noticed David was different. He was energized in ways I hadn't seen in years. He was coming home from church excited, talking about the worship services, praising Amber's gift and anointing. He started spending extra time at the church for worship planning meetings and creative sessions. He and Amber would meet for hours developing the music ministry, planning special services, creating new expressions of worship. It all seemed legitimate. It all seemed ministry-focused. It all seemed innocent. But it wasn't innocent. In November 2016, David and Amber's relationship crossed the line from professional to personal, from ministry partnership to emotional affair, and eventually from emotional connection to physical relationship. It happened gradually, then suddenly. Late-night planning sessions became intimate conversations. Intimate conversations became emotional dependence. Emotional dependence became physical attraction. Physical attraction became sexual involvement. By January 2017, they were in a full sexual relationship, and I had no idea. For 2 years, from January 2017 through December 2018, David lived a double life: pastor and preacher on Sundays, adulterer with his worship leader the rest of the week. He'd preach against sin while living in sin. He'd counsel couples about faithfulness while being unfaithful. He'd lead communion while his soul was in darkness. And Amber sang worship songs while sleeping with the pastor. They hid it carefully, strategically, successfully. No one knew, not the staff, not the elders, not the congregation, not me. But in April 2018, Amber got pregnant, David's baby. She was terrified, conflicted, uncertain what to do. David pressured her to terminate the pregnancy quietly. He offered to pay for everything, arrange everything, make it all go away. But Amber refused. She said she couldn't kill their baby, couldn't end a life, couldn't live with that choice. She was keeping the baby. David panicked. A baby would expose everything. A baby would destroy his ministry, his marriage, his reputation, everything. He begged her to reconsider. She refused. She was keeping the baby, period. So David shifted strategies. He convinced Amber to keep the pregnancy secret from everyone, especially from me and from the church. He'd support her financially, help her with everything she needed, but it had to remain hidden until after the baby was born. Then they'd figure out next steps. Amber agreed. She was young, scared, in love with a man who was using her. She agreed to hide, to lie, to disappear. In May 2018, Amber told the church she was taking a temporary leave from her worship leader position for personal health reasons and would return when she was able. David announced it from the pulpit, thanked her for her service, prayed for her healing. Everyone accepted it. No one questioned it. She stopped coming to services, stopped participating in church activities, essentially disappeared from church life. But she stayed in Atlanta, living in an apartment David was secretly paying for, carrying his baby, waiting for instructions on what to do next. For 9 months, May 2018 through January 2019, Amber was pregnant and hidden. David visited her regularly, brought her money, checked on the pregnancy, made sure she had everything she needed. All while preaching 3 services every Sunday, all while sleeping next to me every night, all while playing devoted husband and father to our 3 sons. The lies were so layered, so deep, so complete that even I, his wife of 22 years, suspected nothing. But in January 2019, something shifted. Amber was now 8 months pregnant, due in early March. She was getting restless, lonely, isolated. She'd been hidden away for 8 months while David lived his public life. She started pushing back. She wanted David to tell the truth, to acknowledge the baby, to step down from ministry if needed, but to stop hiding her and their child. David kept promising he would, kept saying he was working on it, kept buying time, but he had no intention of telling the truth. His plan was to keep her hidden indefinitely, support the baby quietly, and maintain his ministry and marriage as if nothing had happened. February 2019, Amber made a decision. She was done hiding, done being the secret, done protecting David's reputation while destroying her own dignity. She was coming back to church. She was going to show up, sit in service, worship God, and let her belly speak the truth David refused to speak. She told David her plan. He panicked, begged her not to, promised he'd tell me himself soon, just give him more time. She refused. She was done waiting. She was coming to church. Easter Sunday, the biggest service of the year, front pew, where everyone could see. David was terrified but trapped. He couldn't stop her without revealing why he was so desperate to keep her away. He couldn't explain his panic without confessing everything. So he went silent, hoping she wouldn't actually do it, hoping she'd change her mind, hoping for a miracle that would make the problem disappear. But Amber didn't disappear. And Easter Sunday came, April 21st, 2019, the day everything exploded, the day my entire life shattered in front of 4,000 people. Easter Sunday is the pinnacle of the Christian calendar. It's the day we celebrate resurrection, victory over death, triumph of life. Churches are packed with regular members, plus visitors who only come twice a year. It's the day pastors preach their best sermons, choirs sing their most powerful songs, everything is elevated and excellent. At New Covenant, Easter Sunday was massive. We expected 6,000 people across 3 services. David had prepared an incredible sermon on resurrection and new beginnings. The choir had rehearsed for weeks. Everything was ready for our biggest, most important service of the year. I woke up Easter morning feeling grateful and expectant. Easter always felt special, sacred, full of hope. I spent extra time in prayer that morning, really seeking God, really wanting to honor the significance of the day. David seemed tense, but I attributed it to normal pre-service nerves. Big days always made him a little anxious. We got ready, gathered our sons, and headed to church early to prepare. The sanctuary looked beautiful. Easter lilies everywhere, banners declaring, "He is risen," bright, festive atmosphere. The worship team was rehearsing, the choir was warming up, staff members were greeting early arrivals. Everything felt right, felt blessed, felt ready for celebration. David and I took our customary seats in the front row on the right side, reserved for the pastor's family. Our 3 sons sat with us, front and center, visible to everyone, the first family, the model family, the blessed family, or so everyone thought. The service began at 10 a.m. The sanctuary filled rapidly. By 10:15, we had 4,000 people packed in, standing room only. The worship was powerful, the atmosphere electric. People were celebrating, praising, declaring resurrection. It was glorious. I was fully engaged, hands raised, worshiping, celebrating Jesus. David was beside me, but I could feel his tension. He seemed distracted, kept looking toward the back of the sanctuary, checking his watch. I assumed he was mentally preparing for his sermon. I didn't think anything of it. At 10:30, during the third worship song, I noticed movement in my peripheral vision. Someone walking down the center aisle toward the front. Not unusual. People often came forward during worship to pray or worship more freely at the altar. But something made me look. And when I looked, I saw her, Amber Richardson, walking down the center aisle, wearing a flowing purple maternity dress that did nothing to hide the enormous, undeniable, impossible-to-miss 9-month pregnant belly protruding in front of her. I stopped singing, stopped breathing, just stared. Amber was pregnant, massively, obviously, about to give birth pregnant. And she was walking toward the front of the sanctuary, toward the front pews, during our Easter service, in front of 4,000 people. I hadn't seen her in almost a year, since May 2018 when she'd taken her health leave. And now she was here, 9 months pregnant, walking down the aisle like she belonged. She reached the front and instead of stopping at the altar to pray, she turned and sat down in the front pew on the left side, directly across the aisle from where David and I sat. Front row, center, visible to everyone behind her and everyone on the platform. She sat down, smoothed her dress over her enormous belly, folded her hands on top of her stomach, and looked up at the worship team with a peaceful, serene expression. Like this was completely normal. Like she hadn't been hidden for 9 months. Like her presence wasn't about to detonate everything. I looked at David. His face was white, completely white, frozen, staring at Amber with undisguised panic. And that's when I knew, the way he was looking at her, the terror in his eyes, the way his hands were shaking. That wasn't surprise at seeing a former staff member return. That wasn't concern about her health or situation. That was fear. That was guilt. That was, oh God, no, this can't be happening, panic. And in that instant, I understood. David knew about the pregnancy. David knew whose baby it was. David's baby. That was David's baby in Amber's belly, sitting in the front pew on Easter Sunday in front of our entire congregation. The worship song ended. The worship leader transitioned to prayer. People around the sanctuary were settling into their seats, preparing for the sermon. Amber sat peacefully in the front pew, her belly enormous and obvious, her presence impossible to ignore. Whispers started rippling through the congregation. Is that Amber Richardson? Is she pregnant? Who's the father? Why is she sitting in the front pew? The whispers grew louder. People were noticing, questioning, wondering. David stood to preach. He walked to the pulpit, opened his Bible, and tried to begin his Easter sermon. But his voice was shaking. His hands were trembling. He kept glancing at Amber in the front pew, then at me, then back at his notes. He started the sermon. Today, we celebrate resurrection. Today, we celebrate new life. Today, we celebrate victory over death and... He stopped mid-sentence. Couldn't continue. Just stood there at the pulpit, staring at his notes, unable to speak. The sanctuary went silent. 4,000 people watching their pastor freeze at the pulpit on Easter Sunday. Something was very wrong. Everyone could feel it. The tension was suffocating. David looked up from his notes, looked at Amber, then looked at the congregation. And then he did something I'll never forget. He started crying, right there at the pulpit, in front of everyone, tears streaming down his face. And he said, his voice breaking, I can't preach this sermon. I can't stand here and talk about resurrection when my life is full of death. I can't talk about new life when I've destroyed lives. I can't talk about victory when I've lived in defeat. I need to tell you the truth. All of you. Right now, the truth I've been hiding. The sanctuary was so silent you could hear people breathing. David continued, still crying, still shaking. That young woman sitting in the front pew, Amber Richardson, she's pregnant, 9 months pregnant, and the baby she's carrying is mine. I had an affair with her for 2 years, from January 2017 until she got pregnant in April 2018. I asked her to terminate the pregnancy. She refused, so I hid her, paid for her to stay away, to keep quiet, to disappear so no one would know. For 9 months I've been hiding her and lying to all of you, to my wife, to my sons, to this congregation, to God. I'm a fraud, a liar, an adulterer. I'm not fit to be your pastor. I'm not fit to preach. I'm not fit to lead. I'm so sorry. To Michelle, to my sons, to this church, to Amber, to everyone. I'm so sorry. 4,000 people sat in stunned silence. I felt like I was watching from outside my body. This wasn't real. This couldn't be real. My husband, standing at the pulpit on Easter Sunday, confessing to adultery with our worship leader, confessing to a baby, confessing to hiding her for 9 months, confessing to everything in front of everyone, with the proof sitting 9 months pregnant in the front pew. It was surreal, devastating, impossible, and completely, undeniably real. I stood up, slowly, calmly. Every eye in the sanctuary turned to me. I looked at David at the pulpit. Then at Amber in the front pew, her hands folded over her belly, tears streaming down her face. Then back at David, and I said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "When is she due?" David stammered, 2 weeks, March 7th. I nodded slowly. Then I said, 23 years, 23 years of marriage, 3 sons. A ministry we built together from 17 people, and you destroyed it all for an affair with someone young enough to be your daughter. You hid a pregnancy for 9 months. You lied to me every single day. You preached against sin while living in sin. You counseled couples while betraying your own marriage. You took offerings to support ministry while using church money to hide your mistress. You're right about one thing, David. You're not fit to be a pastor. You're not fit to be a husband. You're not fit to be a father to the sons watching you right now. You're done. Here, at this church, in this marriage, all of it. Done. I walked off the platform, down the aisle, past Amber in the front pew, past 4,000 stunned people, out of the sanctuary, into the parking lot, got in my car, and drove away. I left Easter service, left the church I'd built, left the marriage I'd invested 23 years in, left everything, because everything was already gone, already destroyed, already dead. I was just acknowledging what David's confession had made undeniably clear. That afternoon, our 3 sons came home. They were devastated, humiliated, furious. Their father had destroyed their family publicly, spectacularly, on Easter Sunday in front of everyone they knew. Joshua, our oldest, said, "Dad just destroyed everything. Our family, his ministry, Mom's reputation, everything. For what? For an affair? For a baby with someone who's basically my age? How do we come back from this?" I told them the truth. We don't come back. We move forward. Your father made his choices. Now we make ours. We choose truth. We choose healing. We choose to rebuild, not with him, without him. That week, I filed for divorce, got the best attorney in Atlanta. We moved swiftly, strategically, decisively. By June 2019, the divorce was final. 23-year marriage over. I got the house, significant alimony, child support for Nathan, who was still a minor, and half of everything David had accumulated. Fair, clean, final. The church imploded immediately. The Board of Elders held an emergency meeting the Monday after Easter. They voted unanimously to remove David as senior pastor, effective immediately. He was given 2 weeks to vacate his office and sever all ties with the church. The congregation was shattered, angry, betrayed, hurt. Attendance dropped by 60% within a month. Financial giving collapsed. Staff members resigned. Within 6 months, New Covenant Worship Center went from 4,500 members to 800 members. The television ministry shut down. 2 of the 3 campuses closed. Everything David had built for 23 years collapsed in 6 months because he'd built it on lies and it couldn't survive truth. Amber had the baby on March 5th, 2019, 2 days before her due date, a boy. She named him David Jr. The affair between her and David ended within weeks of the Easter confession. Once everything was public, once the cost became clear, the love they claimed disappeared quickly. Amber moved back to Florida to live with her parents and raise her son. David pays child support, but they have no relationship. She got used, got pregnant, got exposed, and got abandoned. All before she turned 30. David spiraled after losing everything. He tried to start a new church, but no one came. He tried to get hired at other churches, but his reputation preceded him. He ended up working in sales at a car dealership. He lives alone in a small apartment. He has limited relationship with our 3 sons. They see him occasionally, but the trust is broken, the respect is gone. He destroyed his own legacy completely. But my story didn't end with divorce. It began there. Because 2 weeks after Easter Sunday, when I was at my lowest point, when I was devastated and humiliated and uncertain how to move forward, I got a phone call from a woman in California. Her name was Pastor's wife, Janet. She'd seen news coverage of our Easter Sunday implosion. It had gone viral, made national Christian news, and she wanted me to know I wasn't alone. She was a pastor's wife, too. Her husband had also had an affair with a staff member. She'd also been betrayed, humiliated, divorced, destroyed. And she'd spent the last 10 years helping other pastors' wives navigate similar situations. She said, "Michelle, what happened to you happens to hundreds of pastors' wives every year. Hidden, silent. Devastating. We need to change that. Would you consider joining me in this work? I said yes. In June 2019, 1 month after my divorce, I flew to California to meet Janet. We spent a week together sharing stories, sharing strategies, sharing vision for what could be built. We decided to create an organization specifically for pastors' wives, navigating betrayal, abuse, exploitation, and divorce. We'd provide counseling, legal support, financial assistance, advocacy, and community. We'd break the silence. We'd demand accountability. We'd protect women who'd been left unprotected. In August 2019, we launched Pastors' Wives Rising. Started with a website, a hotline, and a commitment to serve any pastor's wife who reached out. First month, we got 12 calls. Second month, 37 calls. Third month, 83 calls. Word spread rapidly. Women were desperate for help, for support, for someone who understood the unique trauma of pastoral betrayal. We grew quickly. By December 2019, we had 200 active clients across 15 states. We hired our first employees, a licensed counselor and a legal advocate. We incorporated as a nonprofit. We started fundraising. We raised $200,000 the first year from donors who believed in the mission. 2020, despite the pandemic, we exploded. When churches went online during lockdowns, pastors' wives who'd been isolated and abused found us through internet searches. We got calls from all over the world: Kenya, Brazil, Philippines, Australia, England. Pastors' wives everywhere suffering silently, desperately needing help. We expanded internationally, hired multilingual staff, created resources in Spanish, Portuguese, Swahili, Mandarin. We became truly global. By December 2020, we'd served 800 pastors' wives across 22 countries. Our budget grew to $500,000. We employed 8 full-time staff members. I traveled internationally speaking at conferences, training denominations, advocating for systemic change in how churches treat pastors' wives. In 2021, I wrote my first book, The Pastor's Wife Syndrome: When Shepherds Become Wolves. It detailed everything I'd learned, everything we'd seen, everything that needed to change. A major Christian publisher released it in April 2021. It became a bestseller immediately. Sold 80,000 copies the first year. It opened doors everywhere. Churches, denominations, seminaries started inviting me to speak, to train, to consult on protecting pastors' wives. 2022, we launched our legal fund. Many pastors' wives couldn't afford attorneys to fight powerful husbands and churches that protected those husbands. We started providing free legal representation, hired 3 attorneys, took on cases nationwide. We won repeatedly. We got women out of abusive situations, secured financial settlements, held churches accountable. Everything grew. By December 2022, we'd served 5,000 pastors' wives across 35 countries. Our budget reached $800,000. We employed 15 staff members. I wrote my second book, Sacred Boundaries: Protecting Pastors' Wives from Exploitation. It sold 60,000 copies. Everything kept expanding. 2023, we launched our emergency housing program. Some pastors' wives had nowhere to go when they left. Their housing was church-provided, and they lost it immediately upon separation. We started providing emergency apartments, 6 months of rent-free housing while women rebuilt. We partnered with organizations in major cities to secure housing. We helped 200 women that year with safe housing. Today, in March 2025, 6 years after Easter Sunday, Pastors' Wives Rising serves over 15,000 women across 40 countries. Our annual budget is $1.2 million. We employ 23 full-time staff members. I've written 3 books with combined sales of 200,000 copies. I speak internationally at conferences. Major denominations consult with us on systemic reforms. We've helped expose and remove hundreds of abusive pastors. We've protected thousands of women and children. We've transformed church culture around accountability for pastoral leadership. My personal life transformed too. Joshua is now 28, a civil rights attorney who specializes in representing abuse survivors. Watching his mother's devastation and resurrection inspired him to fight for justice. Caleb is 25, a licensed therapist specializing in religious trauma recovery. He helps people heal from church hurt and spiritual abuse. Nathan is 22, a PhD candidate studying power dynamics and abuse in religious institutions. All three of my sons took our family's devastation and chose purpose. I'm incredibly proud of them. I remarried 3 years ago to a wonderful man named Robert Chen. He's a high school principal, has nothing to do with church leadership, leads with humility and integrity. He's everything David wasn't. We have a beautiful partnership built on honesty, equality, and genuine love. I'm genuinely happy. David never recovered professionally or spiritually. He's still selling cars, still living alone, still paying child support to Amber, still largely estranged from our sons. He destroyed his own life thoroughly. I don't wish him harm. I just want him far from positions of power where he can hurt more people. Amber is 34 now, raising David Jr. as a single mother in Florida. She works as a receptionist. She never returned to ministry or church. The affair cost her everything, too. She got used by a man who had all the power and she had none. I have compassion for her now. She was young, naive, manipulated by someone who should have protected her. I hope she's found healing. The 9-month pregnant belly in the front pew is now a 6-year-old boy named David Jr., who doesn't know his father and lives in Florida with his mother and grandparents. That child is innocent. I pray he grows up knowing God genuinely, not the twisted version his father represented. You know, Easter Sunday is supposed to be about resurrection, about new life rising from death, about victory emerging from devastation. But that Easter Sunday 6 years ago taught me that sometimes resurrection requires death first. My marriage died. David's ministry died. My identity as First Lady died. Everything died on Easter Sunday in front of 4,000 people. But from that death came resurrection. Real resurrection. Not the fake version David preached while living in darkness, but the real version where God takes what's broken and builds something genuinely new. The 9-month pregnant belly wasn't just evidence of adultery. It was evidence that secrets kept in darkness always come to light eventually. It was evidence that pastors' wives bear unique burdens and deserve specific protections. It was evidence that we must hold spiritual leaders to higher standards, not lower ones, because their falls destroy so many more people. If you're a pastor's wife suffering in silence, being abused, exploited, or betrayed, please hear me. You are not alone. There are thousands of us. We understand. We believe you. We will help you. You don't have to protect your husband's reputation at the cost of your dignity. You don't have to stay silent to preserve ministry. You don't have to sacrifice yourself for a man who's already sacrificing you. There is help. There is hope. There is life after pastoral marriage ends. Now I want to hear from you. Have you experienced betrayal by spiritual leadership? Have you seen churches protect pastors while abandoning their wives? How did you respond? Drop your story in the comments below. Let's build a community that protects the vulnerable and holds leaders accountable. And if this story showed you that your most humiliating moment can become your greatest ministry, do me a favor. Hit that like button right now. Subscribe to this channel for more stories of transformation and justice. Share this video with a pastor's wife who needs to know she's not alone. Comment below with one word: trapped, leaving, free, rising. Let's walk this together. Because we're not just surviving pastoral betrayal, we're building a global movement that protects women and demands accountability. Let's go.